Welcome back to another episode of the Amateur Hour Podcast. I'm Jacob. I'm the host today. Nico is joining me once again.
Glad to be here.
And for the first time on the podcast, we're going to be talking about boxing. Kind of in the wake of the Andy Ruiz versus Anthony Joshua 2, the rematch where Anthony Joshua more or less dominated Andy Ruiz.
Dominated.
It wasn't a great fight for like a neutral or like, a guy...
For someone looking for an
entertaining, high action fight. It was a boxing clinic by Anthony Joshua. And that, going into the fight, people really questioned, can Anthony Joshua box at distance, because Andy Ruiz is so quick and he's so good from a short distance. And Anthony Joshua answered the question, yes, because he put on a clinic. He won, I think 10 rounds,
it was
9 rounds.
10 rounds to two.
To two.
And even then, people were like, it could have been 11 rounds to
one.
I
think, well, first of all, what did you make of that second fight?
The second fight, I think Joshua really showed that he could compose himself. I think in the first fight, for those of you who didn't watch the first fight, or for those of you that did, I think it was shown that when Anthony Joshua got into Andy Ruiz and he rocked him the first time, he kind of got extremely into it. He lost his composure and he's like, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to knock him out now.
Everybody was the commentators. Anthony Joshua's going to clean up now. He's going to take over this fight.
And that's the thing. And then the problem is that he started to make that fight an in-close battle, and it was shown that Andy Ruiz has the faster hands of the two, especially when in tight. And because of that, Ruiz was able to punish Anthony Joshua in that first fight. And in the second fight, Joshua realized that. Joshua went back and his trainers were really like, man, you can't lose your composure. You're probably going to outbox this guy. There's a good chance you'll rock him. But if you do, you can't play his game. You can't get into it. And you saw it. It ended up being not Joshua the one losing his composure, but Ruiz. Ruiz, even in the last round, the last 10 seconds, he kept on telling him, come here in the middle of the ring. And Joshua's like, no. Why? Are you stupid? I won this fight.
I've already won.
Yeah, he goes, I won this fight. I don't need to knock you out. You need to knock me out. And it showed. Joshua was just really composed. His outside game was very good. He did a good job that whenever Ruiz tried to come in, he used his feet well to get out of there. And it really showed that he was by far the better boxer.
It showed as well that Andy Ruiz put on 16 pounds from the first fight. And his athleticism really let him down, because Joshua made him box at distance, which is, it doesn't suit Andy Ruiz, but Andy Ruiz had no response to that. Andy Ruiz basically was do or die by the short distance, the quick hands. And, when you get in close, Andy Ruiz has that hook, that right hook behind your left ear, which is so dangerous. It was so dangerous in that first fight. And I think in the first fight, Anthony Joshua was the better boxer, and he was probably going to win that fight. But I think a lot of it was because, a lot of it came down to, he sat off a bit. He's like, okay, I'm going to clean up this guy. Look at Andy Ruiz. You wouldn't expect this guy to be a heavyweight boxing champion. But then, all of a sudden, Andy Ruiz surprised you with that right hook behind that left ear. And all of a sudden, your head's spinning a bit, and you lose composure, like you said. And Andy Ruiz, all of a sudden, took over that fight.
Yeah, momentum swung his way, and he took advantage of it.
What was it, 5 or 6 rounds before that happened? But Andy Ruiz took over. And in the rematch, I think the mentality was that, Anthony Joshua's mentality was much better, because the original fight was at MSG, Madison Square Garden in New York, and I've read that Anthony Joshua spent 2 weeks in New York after the fight, just kind of soaking everything in, and Andy Joshua talked a lot about having to face, family, friends, peers, the boxing world after a fight like that, because it was pretty embarrassing how he lost. And he got right back to work after that fight. But Andy Ruiz kind of basked in that moment for 3 months, and he started getting prepared for this fight 3 months after that initial fight, which was in June, I believe, and it took him until September to get back to work. Joshua, on the other hand, was right back to work right after the fight. He was determined, and he had that the clause to get a rematch invoked right away, and got to work, and he got busy, and he knew that he understood Andy Ruiz a little better. I think Andy Ruiz won from the surprise factor that he offered in that first fight. Anthony Joshua knew, I have to I can't just like dominate this guy, because Anthony Joshua is going into the second fight had 22 wins, 21 knockouts. Only the one loss to Andy Ruiz, and he knew that if he got in close, it was gonna be dangerous. So he had to box differently, and he showed the talent. And I think true talent in any sport shows your versatility to be able to switch up your game to fit different instances, and that's what Anthony Joshua showed us in that second fight.
Yep. And it's like exactly what you said, man. I think Joshua really took in that loss, and he really just learned from it. Like he realized
it's your first loss, right?
It's your first loss, and a lot of people, you can let it hit you one of two ways. Whenever anything hard comes in life, you can look at it and be like, I'm never going to bounce back from this, or you can look at it and use it as a motivator and say, you're going to get back from this. And you know what? He did it, and he showed that he's still definitely a world-class fighter. He came back even better than before, and he came back smarter than before. I think that was the biggest thing. I think a huge lesson to Anthony Joshua is the fact that he understands that a fight can be won or lost in any round, and I think a lot of times when you go undefeated for so long, you kind of forget that. You kind of think you're invincible, but he kind of realized, I'm not invincible if I don't fight smart, and he's fought smart.
I think maybe the loss was a great learning curve for him, you know, to realize, like you said, I need to box smarter instead of just like aggressive as before.
Like the only reason why it sucks is, yeah, sure, it may be that just a little stain in your career. But you know what? He went back and he fought the same guy and he beat him. And he didn't just kind of beat him. No, he beat him.
Wiped the floor
he beat him. And I think that's the best part that you can look at it from. And that's why I think he's going to continue to, honestly, to get better from here. And I think Ruiz kind of showed that extra weight wasn't there. Was not the right decision, one, and that he should have worked maybe a little bit harder. And I think you saw it with just how slow he was with his footwork. Like, you're gonna have footwork. You're gonna have fast hands, but in the end, boxing's all about footwork as well. If you can't find your way in or find your way out, you're never gonna get
Joshua never let him settle, so he made him use that footwork, which is clearly not his strong suit, and he played that.
And that's the thing. Ruiz in the first fight was able to plant his feet and drop bombs, and that's why he beat Joshua after he lost his composure. But this fight, Joshua made sure he was always out of his range, that whenever he was in there, that he got out of there quickly with his footwork. He never let Ruiz just stand there and rip. Like, he was like, no, you got to move. And when you move, you're not going to hit me with your full power. And honestly, your movement's slow. You're never going to get in here.
It was a smart way to fight. And Joshua played that as best he could. And it showed in the results of the fight. Like, conclusively won that fight. Yes. But what does the future hold for these two?
I think Ruiz kind of goes back to the drawing board. I think people now recognize the fact that he's not necessarily in the top sort of talks as far as top heavyweight contenders go. He's not on the sort of same wavelength as Deontay Wilder, as Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. Dylan White is another one that you can talk about in there. He's not on that level, which is unfortunate. I think he can go off and sort of fight some of these guys, or maybe some guys like closer to that sort of thing, like Oscar Rivas is one guy he can go out and fight type thing. But he's just not necessarily at that level. And could he get to that level? Like, not necessarily not at that level. Like, he's great, but I don't think he's amongst
Why do you think he's not at that level? He's 33-2. He has 22 knockouts in those 33 wins. He beat Anthony Joshua, the only man to have ever beaten Anthony Joshua in a boxing match. Why do you not think he's on that wavelength?
I think it's because of how outclassed he got by Anthony Joshua. Like, I'm not saying Anthony Joshua hasn't outclassed like guys like that before, but usually when he does, they don't end up reappearing as anything that great. Like, in the end,
but Andy Ruiz outclassed Anthony Joshua to a degree in that first fight. I mean,
I don't really think he outclassed him. I think he just caught him on a day.
He
beat him.
His nickname to destroy. He destroyed Anthony Joshua on that day. And again, like, because of how these hands, and if he lands that one punch,
here's the thing. So
the fight shifts. I don't know.
The way you're kind of labeling him is almost like he's a Deontay Wilder type fighter.
No, he's not. He's not.
But that's the thing. Like, I just don't. He's just not on that level. Like, I just from my eye test at least, I just don't think he has that boxing level at the same height as these guys like Deontay Wilder, Dylan White, Tyson Fury. Like, those guys that I named, I think are just a different caliber of fighters.
If I will look at it this way, talent-wise, doesn't quite reach the level of these guys you're talking about.
Yes.
But in a fight, it's one of those it's
heavyweights.
It's one of those sports teams that, on their day, they're not the most talented, but on their day, they can take down the giant because, they get he lands that one right hook.
I agree, but I think that was a one-time thing to happen. I think that one time was Anthony Joshua, and I think
you know what? I'd like to see if it can happen again. I'd like to see him take on like a top guy, like one of these guys, like White, like Fury, like Wilder.
Tyson Fury. Okay, I think he would get picked apart by Tyson Fury.
I think Tyson Fury would win that fight.
Almost worse than what Anthony Joshua.
Well, I mean, there's an even bigger height difference there.
And that's what I'm saying. Tyson Fury, I think, is even more smarter than Anthony Joshua. And if he goes in against Deontay Wilder, if we're talking about speed and power.
But I know what I would be. I don't think he'd necessarily win these fights, but I'd be interested to see.
Do you know what fight I think would be interesting to see him fight is Luis Ortiz. I think that would be an interesting fight, and I think I would love for Andy Ruiz to prove me wrong, and I think Luis Ortiz would be one of those guys to do it with. Ortiz is one of those older fighters that's kind of sort of going away. But Ortiz was one of those guys. He was beating Wilder in his fight, and then obviously Wilder was one of his 41 knockouts.
Wilder was 41 knockouts in 42 fights.
Decided to almost kill Luis Ortiz in the fucking ring. It was if you can go watch that knockout, I recommend you do. It was.
And Ortiz has only lost twice in his career,
and
it's only to Deontay Wilder. And by the way, one of Deontay Wilder's the only fight that Deontay Wilder did not knock out his opponent was when he fought. Well, other than the tie, the only win that's not a knockout is to Luis Ortiz. It was a takeout. So I think this could be a good matchup for Ruiz. I think you're right. I didn't think about this before, but the height difference isn't as big. Mm-hmm. This could be a good fight for Ruiz.
That's why I think that's the one. And I think if he beats Luis Ortiz, he kind of shows that he does belong in that talk. Ortiz is also, like I said, getting a little bit older, which is why I think that would be.
Ortiz is also suspended right now.
I didn't know that.
He's suspended. Till 2020. But I mean, only until 2020. What is that? I don't know if this is January 7th or July 1st. I think this is an American website. I think it's till July 1st. Sorry, till he's suspended. So, I mean, maybe one day they'll fight. But right now he can't.
But then again, another guy that he can kind of fight is Dylan White. So Dylan White's only loss, he's 27-1, is to Anthony Joshua. That's another guy that he can go into there. So Dylan White's a guy who's trying to prove himself again. Alias is the Body Snatcher. That's scary.
Jesus. That's a cool nickname.
Yeah, it is. So again, he can go out there, and if he goes out and beats Dylan White, he again solidifies himself as one of those guys should be in that talk. But as far as heavyweights go, I really think there's only three names that people can really talk about. And it's Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and Tyson Fury.
I think to a degree you're correct. I think if Ruiz I think it was Ruiz's day that time. And maybe Joshua, Joshua put on a clinic. Mm-hmm. I want to see Fury Joshua. Mm-hmm. I also want to see Wilder Joshua. But Fury and Wilder have a fight coming up in February, is it?
Yeah, February 22nd.
Do you think that maybe the winner of that fight could take on Anthony Joshua?
I think Anthony Joshua is going to continue to run away from both of these guys, man. And
do you think Anthony Joshua would outclass them if they fought?
Oh, no. I'm saying I don't think Anthony Joshua wants anything to do with either
he wants
one
to
of those
stay
guys.
away.
I think he wants to stay away.
You mean I thought you meant run away.
When I mean run away, I mean
I am not fighting those guys.
I do not want to touch those guys. If he's scared of the power of Andy Ruiz, he does not want to see Deontay Wilder with the glove on in front of him. There's no way. And the thing with Deontay Wilder, and he showed this against Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder is not necessarily the greatest boxer.
He's
as far as technique goes, there's been guys that outbox him. But what Deontay Wilder has shown is that every fight, he will find a way to connect. At one point in time, he's going to find a point where he's going to connect his right hand to your face, to your temple, to honestly wherever he wants. And when he does,
the fight's won in a second, right?
And that's the thing. 41 knockouts in 42 fights. I'm pretty sure this guy's one of the lightest heavyweights of all time. It's scary. It's honestly scary. He's just pure muscle. Like, that's all he is. And he just destroys people. And what's scary about Deontay Wilder is just that he's getting better technically. So if he gets better technically, plus keeps that power, nobody wants to touch him. Other than Tyson Fury just wants to fight everybody. And the reason why I say this is because there's been times where Tyson Fury's called out Anthony Joshua. And he's like, yo, let's fight. Like, this should be a fight. And Anthony Joshua just kind of keeps on going, like, you have to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself.
I don't know, man.
Tyson Fury knocked out Vladimir Klitschko, man. And this guy was no joke when he knocked out Vladimir Klitschko. This one, Klitschko is one of the best of all time. And then Anthony Joshua was like, I'm going to go fight Klitschko. Dude, he already got knocked out by Tyson Fury. Like, he was past his prime and you beat him. Cool.
But, okay, now that kind of Anthony Joshua has cemented himself, you know, after that Andy Ruiz fight and victory, do you think after the Fury-Wilder fight that it will be... Like, the winner's going to be, like...
It has to be. It has to be.
You got to fight us now.
Whoever wins that fight has to fight Joshua. And Joshua has to accept that fight. If he doesn't, I will... I mean, I can't really call Joshua a bitch. That guy would ruin my life. But but what I'm saying is that...
It looks soft.
It looks soft. It looks soft.
And it looks scared.
He can't back away from that fight any longer. He has to pick one of those
now
guys.
more than ever.
Now more than ever. Especially because those two guys have solidified themselves as the other two best heavyweight boxers. If not even better than Anthony Joshua. Because there's a lot of talks out there right now. Who's the best heavyweight? And I think a lot of people have it as Tyson Fury number one. And maybe Joshua, like those two kind of fighting for it. And Deontay Wilder being number 2 or 3. Simply because his power. Like, everyone's just scared of that power.
And then they're all, like, at least 30. Like, Joshua's 30, Fury 31, Wilder's 34. Mm-hmm. Now is the time. You got to fight. Like, the whole world wants this fight.
I want to see... Oh,
well, man. I'm excited for the Fury-Wilder fight. But, man, I really want the Joshua
Let's just
fight.
turn it into a Royal Rumble or a triple threat. Let's just
Triple
get
threat?
all 3 of those guys in there.
How about Hell in the Cell throwing Andy Ruiz?
Andy Ruiz in there, exactly. No, but I think Joshua has to fight the winner of that fight, and I don't really think there's much other competition out there for him. Like I said, like
you're at the top, and you got to take on the other guys at the top. You can't just stay on the outside looking in.
They're the only other 2 guys that are at least around the name, like, that people are talking about. Even if you don't know boxing,
you know Fury.
You know
Fury,
Joshua, and Wilder.
Yeah.
Like, those are 3 names. At least you're most likely to know those 3 names.
Well, what about KSI and Logan Paul? No, there's some boxing.
Anthony Joshua should fight KSI.
You started right. You heard it right here first on the Amateur Hour Podcast.
No, I would love to see Deontay Wilder just land a right hand against Logan Paul.
That fight would be over in the first round.
That fight would be over in the first 10 seconds.
The fight you only win in a second, and that fight would be done in a second.
I think Logan Paul's life would just flash before his eyes as soon as
that would be
if anybody ever legally let that happen, that would be insane.
Anybody is a bystander who let that happen.
Whoever bought a ticket to that fight, you're going to jail.
But back on track. The Fury or Wilder winner has to fight Joshua. That's the conclusion.
That's my conclusion. If he doesn't, Anthony Joshua, you are a... I feel bad saying this because I know you could beat the shit out of me, but you're a pussy for dodging either one of those guys. You're not... your career means nothing to me if you dodge one of those 2 fighters.
If you want to be
solidified as one of the best heavyweights, if not the best heavyweight of all time, you have to fight one of those 2 guys, if not the both of them eventually.
Yeah, and I think the collision course is Joshua versus the winner of that fight. But we'll see how it all plays out. We'll see if Andy Ruiz has any cards to play in this, but we'll end it there. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Amateur Hour Podcast. Maybe we'll have more boxing episodes in the future, maybe after the Wilder Fury fight.
That'd be fun.
But we'll end it here. Come back soon for more daily content.